Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm Good Morning Marianas. Welcome to Chamorro Jesus himself, Angelo Villagomez, the godfather of the Marianas Trench Marine Monument, who recently shaved off his mustache part of his beard. I noticed that the other day. It's a different look. What made you decide to go more toward Abraham Lincoln?
So I am not a thin human being, and when I lay down to sleep, I snore, and when I snore, my mustache goes like this, and it's really itchy. And like just one day, I was like, it kept waking up and itching my nose, and I was like, you know what? I'm shaving this stupid mustache off, so it will grow back.
Yeah, if only that worked for the back of my head, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it will grow back. I started growing facial hair during COVID, when we were all at home, and I just kind of like stopped growing. I stopped cutting my hair, stopped shaving my face, and then here I am 6 years later. So this is what I look like. So
is this one of the good side effects of COVID, is that you were able to grow facial hair during COVID?
I guess so. Or I just wasn't looking in mirrors or something, or I didn't have to wear pants for like a year and a half because I worked from my desk. So I just kind of let myself go. I was exercising though. 2020 was a great fitness year for me.
Yeah, I was exercising.
Hey, before we get started, I wanted to congratulate you on all the success you're having with NMI News Service. I saw you've been doing this since 2022. Is that right?
So the NMI News Service was really like full time, like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
That clip that we had the other day, you're talking about that throwback. That was from the house. The longer story is I even have a clip in there from October of 2021. And so it's like there were some days, but that was the Good Morning Marianas. In fact, it wasn't NMI News Service. And somewhere along the line, I don't remember when it was, when I made the transition from making the Good Morning Marianas the thing to making it, to shift everything over to NMI News Service. But thanks, though. It was May 4th, I think. May the 4th be with you. That was the first day that we did this full time. And yeah, thanks. It's been a wild journey.
Yeah, congrats.
Well, and you've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. So, like, of course, I've known you for a long time, and the folks here in the Marianas have known you for a long time. But you were one of the people who got things started with the environment here. I know you won't claim that you're the guy or anything, but you were one of the people who got Beautify CNMI together, and people remember that. That was something that really got a lot of people together to not just talk about the environment and everything like that, but there was a time when people talked a lot of smack about Saipan on the internet, and you even got blogs going here.
Yeah, there was a website. I won't say the name.
Yeah, but it wasn't a flattering reference to the island of Saipan. And you got a bunch of people to start blogs. And I'm not talking what people talk about blogs in Saipan now. They refer to them as the comment section of the Variety, and I still chuckle about that. But
yeah, we created the We Love Saipan network, where a bunch of us would just write about our lives and like how much we love the island and the fun things that we were doing. And they're like, I miss the island so much. There's always something to do. There's always a barbecue to go to. There's always a soccer game on the weekends, a volleyball game on the beach. I miss the island so much.
I often tell people your quote that you said to years ago. You're like, there should be a support group for people who leave Saipan.
Yeah, yeah, it's home. I mean, it's even for folks who aren't born there, who go there, you spend a couple years on the island. It's a special place. We're a special people, and people take the experiences that they have on Saipan with them all around the world, and it stays with them. Like it's such a wonderful community. I question every day why I left. I left for work because I pursued a career in global conservation, and that is easier done from Washington, especially 20 years ago. Actually, I left 16 years ago. 16 years ago, it was impossible to do the type of work I do from Saipan. But now we've got homegrown global superstars, Sheila Babauta, Julian Ogden on Guam, and like honestly like a whole bunch of others. Some working on the islands, others working as diaspora. It's a really cool time. I do want to introduce myself to your viewers, if that's okay.
Please.
But I want you to do something fun. I want you to grab your phone, and I can't see you, but you grab your phone or your computer and look up a bio for Angelo Villagomez on ChatGPT, and then read that after I give sort of my how I'm attached to Saipan introduction. But my name is Angelo. I was born on Guam. My dad is the late Ramon Garrido Villagomez. He was a signer of our first Constitution. He was a Supreme Court justice for many years. Sadly passed away. My mom is Auntie Donna. Auntie Donna is from Worcester, Mass. So yeah, I'm a mixed race Chamorro. Spent the early years of my life living on Saipan. But for those of you who've never heard of Auntie Donna, it's because my parents divorced, and I went back to the States and lived there. But I would come back to the islands every summer and spend time with my younger brothers and my cousins. My cousin Anna Lee will tell me, she's like, "Oh, Angelo, he's the cousin who always wore the hat with the B, and he's the white cousin." He's the Boston Red Sox. I'm a huge Boston Red Sox fan. And then after college, that's when I went back to Saipan, and I met up with Simta Kaipat and Tina Sablon, and we started Friends of the Mariana Trench. And we would do, sorry, step back. We created Beautify CNMI. This was like in 2005, 2006. And we were planting trees and doing beach cleanups and promoting recycling at the July 4th Liberation Festival. And then a couple years later, with Ike Cabrera and the late Andrew Salas and Agnes McPherdes in Lori Paterka, we created Friends of the Mariana Trench, and we advocated for protections around just the 3 northern islands, not the islands themselves, because the islands are controlled by the indigenous people because of Article 12. But we wanted to, the idea was the 3 northernmost islands are protected in the Constitution forever and for always as protected places. But those protections don't extend to the water. And at the time, all of the waters were federally controlled. And so it made sense to work with the federal government on an idea. What happened was a little bit different from what we proposed. If you kind of read the history of the Mariana Trench Marine National Monument, the initial proposal was just for the far northern area, but the protections extend to the entire Mariana Trench now. And that's actually pertinent to the deep sea mining that we're going to talk about right now, because the trench unit of the monument, it's called the Mariana Trench National Wildlife Refuge. It actually bans deep sea mining within its borders. So the reason why the area being proposed for deep sea mining is all the way to the east is because the monument was designated. So the monument is doing as we hoped it would. It is protecting the seabed in the area around the Mariana Trench. That's what it was designed to do. But what it does not do is it doesn't protect the seabed outside of the monument. And that's kind of what we're up for discussion today. Did you look me up on ChatGPT? What does it say about my career?
Okay, so there's 2 things that I found, and I'm going to put that on there. But the one thing I liked is that just when I did it, the one that Google puts up right away, it pulls from the CAP website. It says, in fact, it sounds like a movie thing. So I got to do movie voice.
Movie voice, great.
Born in a village on an island in the western Pacific Ocean, next to the Marianas Trench, and trained in Western scientific methods. I mean, that's how it starts. That's the Center for American Progress.
I'm trained in Western scientific methods.
I don't know what that means, but does that?
As I have a science degree.
Okay, great. It's very cool. It says you are a conservation advocate who uses indigenous knowledge and values and scientific method to address modern threats, including habitat loss, fishing, and climate colonialism that we can wrestle about. But here's what I got. I've got ChatGPT. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm going to put this up on the screen so everybody else can see this too, because I think it's awesome. Hold on. Well, actually, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just read it from here. Okay, so here's a solid, ready-to-use biography for Angelo Villagomez. Bio. It says, Angelo Villagomez is an indigenous Chamorro conservation leader from the Mariana Islands whose work bridges indigenous knowledge and Western science to protect ocean ecosystems while strengthening community governance. He's a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, where he focuses on indigenous-led conservation and ocean policy. This is where it gets good, I think. Over the course of his career, Villagomez has been a prominent advocate for ocean justice, working to elevate Pacific Islander perspectives in a regional and global conservation framework, and address threats such as habitat loss, fishing impacts, and what he describes as climate colonialism. He has also written and spoken publicly about conservation and resource management issues affecting the Marianas, including deep-sea mining concerns in the region. Then they got a couple of other things here. There's like 3 sentences left. It says the one or two is that you're an indigenous Chamorro ocean conservation advocate from the Mariana Islands and a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress, focusing on indigenous-led conservation and ocean justice. Then they give me a super short tag, which we'll call the Sammy Babauta version. The indigenous Chamorro ocean conservation advocate and the senior fellow there. He says, if your buddy Angelo is a different Angelo Villagomez, parentheses, athlete, businessman, tell me. So you are not the athlete, is what they're telling me on ChatGPT.
Is it? I don't know. Like, you remember playing soccer together all those years ago?
Yes, that's why. Why is that not prominent? Why is that not your main thing?
I
International
think,
superstar.
I've spoken and written more about my work on sharks and protected areas than the 2 soccer games that I played in 2007. That's probably why.
That is awesome. By the way, I don't want to digress too much, but since we're talking about soccer, I wonder if you might be in this video game. I am on a soccer video game.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, not hilarious. Congratulations.
It is more hilarious than congratulations. It's also, if you pick me, it's got to be like, I bet I can, like I'm so good at this game, I'm going to take Brad Ruszala against you.
Talent, 2, power, 1.
I hope my power is higher than talent, because that's kind of my brand. Let me just try one more thing. Haircut, steady. Angelo Villagomez, soccer. This will be the last one until we talk to real stuff. This is definitely you. You're on the transfer market. That's one. Here's, by the way, here's an old story from Variety Co-ed Soccer to start next month. Team Todd's a talent. And let's just see the soccer under the Saipan blog, which, by the way, I should resurrect my blog just so we can find
Hollywood Ruszala.
Yeah, puke with your teammates. And what was the other? Oh, the Circle of Death. Anyway, here you are. I'm going to put you on the share screen real quick just so everyone can see it. This is it. Angelo Villagomez. It's got your date of birth and everything. Mariana Islands. Your position is midfield. And your current club, you're listed as retired.
I am. I am no longer a professional footballer.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
I do want to touch on some of like I am not a navigator. Like, we know that, right? I'm an academic. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the work that I do with Indigenous communities, it's just more based on the experiences that I have growing up on Saipan. I left 16 years ago, and I've been a professional advocate in DC for the last 16 years. And since then, I've worked in about 25 different countries on passing shark laws, protected area laws. I'm also on a number of fisheries advisory councils and protected area advisory councils with the government, with the United States, including like some of the guys on Saipan who work on fisheries. We're on the same advisory councils. But it's shocking how little Pacific Islanders have been invited to participate in the ocean conservation world. A couple of years ago, API month, have you heard of that?
the Asian American
Pacific Islander month. And like, you know, I live in conservation circles, liberal circles, a lot of Democrats. And an organization was having one of these like discussion panels for AAPI month. And it was like 3 Koreans, a Japanese person, and you know, but no Pacific Islanders were on this thing. And I reached out to the organization. I was like, hey, buddy, like, you know, it's AAPI month. Like it's totally cool for you to have a panel of all Asian people, like that's fine, but you shouldn't include the PI if you don't have any Pacific Islanders on it. And he was like, oh, yeah, I appreciate that. The guy was actually a friend, and he's like, can you get me someone to put on the panel? And I was like, oh, crap! Like I would be such a jerk to be like, oh, I'll go on the panel.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do it. Like, you know, I made you feel guilty, and then, you know, to get myself on this panel. What I did is I kind of did a survey of like the conservation community, and like I'm well connected here, and I literally only found one other Pacific Islander. She was this woman from Fiji, and it just never crossed my mind that I was the only. And this woman was much younger and had only joined her organization like a year or two. So like, you know, the first 8 years that I worked in conservation, I was literally the only Pacific Islander who worked on these ocean issues. And this is wild because literally 30% of all U.S. oceans are just in the U.S. Pacific territories. If you looked at the area around CNMI and Guam, it's about 1 million square miles of ocean. That's bigger than the West Coast. It's bigger than the East Coast, right? We had just like massive resources, massive amounts of biodiversity, the highest levels of like coral diversity in the entire United States. But we are just like completely left out of these discussions. People make all of these decisions on our behalf. And part of the stuff that I've been able to do, especially in the last 4 years since I got the job at Center for American Progress, is I've been able to create spaces for Pacific Islanders to come to DC and to advocate for the things that we want to advocate for. So like, I'm very much concerned with the management of the Mariana Trench. And so Sheila Babauta came out to DC, Tina Sablon came out to DC, and we went to the White House and we met with the officials there. And this was one of there's been a lot of justified criticism of the Mariana Trench Monument over the years. It was designated in 2009, and we couldn't get a management plan published until 2024. It took 15 years. Normally something like that takes 1 year or 2 years or maybe 3 years at most. And so like, that's what I'm talking about with this climate colonialism. It's this intersection of environmental issues plus the fact, and I know some folks kind of cringe when they hear the word colonialism. You could use the word territory instead. But just because we're a territory, we don't have the same influence and same power as Hawaii does, or Florida, or California. And we've hardly ever had people advocating for us in Washington, D.C. And I'm the ocean guy, but for our community, like, we need somebody doing healthcare, we need somebody doing military, we need somebody doing education, and all of these issues. And I've, over 16 years, like, I've come to the conclusion that like the core of a lot of the problems that we have is due to the relationship that we have with the United States. And I don't think that's very controversial, because a lot of folks are always talking about, oh, we have to talk about the covenant, we have to talk about the 902. So that's the kind of stuff that I do. Is I have been very lucky to be able to bring the U.S. territories into the national discussion, and so that some of the things that we're asking for are the things that are hopefully happening. Now, I admit I'm on a particular political team, and things were a lot easier when the last guy was in office, and the guy who's in office right now has just a very different way of looking at natural resources. Like, I don't think it's controversial to say that we just invaded Venezuela for their oil, right? Like, everybody's saying this on CNN or Fox News. And so, we have leaders in Washington, D.C. right now who are willing to use the military to get to these natural resources. And as a small community out in the Western Pacific, like, we have to really know what we're doing when we're dealing with somebody like that. And, right now it's it's the rocks, the electric rocks, the deep sea mining at the bottom of the ocean. But it could be fishing. If you look at the Magnuson-Stevens law, and that's the law that manages all the fisheries in the United States, there's a provision in there that would allow the federal government to sell access to our waters to foreign countries. Personally, I thought this would never happen, but this is something that we have to keep an eye on under this president, who's very interested, and basically everything is for sale. We're gonna drill for oil and off of every coast. We're gonna mine for these minerals, and we're gonna open up fishing everywhere. So that's what I do. It's a very exciting time to be alive and working in Washington, D.C. And I'll say I also recognize I don't represent anybody back home. I've been gone for 15 years and 16 years now. And in our community, the longer it's always home. You're always family. But I do feel like the longer you stay away from home, kind of like the less street cred you get. And so, what I try to do is let other people talk. But like my role is to help open doors. And like I've made it. Like for the most part, like I work for a very prominent, influential think tank. I think I'm literally the only Chamorro who's ever worked for one of these big DC think tanks. I want to help our people share their voices and make sure that the decisions that are happening in Washington, D.C. are actually benefiting our communities.
Well, it's great because it seems like we got one of our guys there in you, right? And that's like one of the encouraging things about all of it. And, we disagree on some stuff. I mean, we can't agree on everything, right? So, and that's cool. But what I really love about our conversations is that, one, we're able to have them. And number two, you can enlighten me on tons of stuff because this is your ballpark, right? Like I'm just kind of learning about a lot of this stuff as this goes along. And, some of the stuff, I don't get, or some of the stuff I've got my own, like, I'll just call it like a layman's take on a lot of stuff. Like I think like regular everyday kind of folks out here kind of have. And, but you actually deal with this. But like one of the things, even though I'm one of the folks who cringe when there's a term like climate colonialism, right? Because I think that colonialism is used over. But what makes sense to me though is like the way you described it. Without getting into like U.S. versus like potential sovereignty or something like that. It's just like, hey, why would people from half a world away have a better idea of how to run what we've got going on here than we do here, right? So I think it's just the packaging for me that I'm not a big fan of. But I get it. Like somebody from Los Angeles is not going to tell someone from Buffalo how to make chicken wings. Right, like that's it. I mean, that's to make it really dumbed down.
But they will tell them how to play football.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, we'll see how that goes for us.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah, this could be the year.
It could be another year of disappointment. But let's get back into some of this stuff. So you're being a real good conduit for helping folks out here who can get passionate about this stuff, make some inroads with folks in D.C. And have a real impact probably on the federal process and all that stuff. So that's the way does that sound like a pretty good summation of that? So now the biggest thing that we got going on right now is this deep sea mining thing. And, I also think of you playing the ukulele for Under the Sea when I think of this whole topic. So with this, where do you want to start? We can talk about the RFI. I mean, it's all going to come down to that we've only got a few days left.
Maybe I'll start with like what is BOEM and like what is BOEM supposed to do, and then just talk a little bit about why deep sea mining. And deep sea mining is a topic that's been proposed for 50, 60, 70 years. There have been tests of deep sea mining. When they did the deep sea mining testing 50 years ago, they would just use a bottom trawl. Where they would take like this giant metal beam and just drag it across the ocean, and then there'd be a big net in behind it, and like stuff would just kind of go into it, and they'd then pull it up and see what was in there. And the fact of the matter is, these are minerals that are needed. Right now, China has a lot of the minerals within their borders. Nearly all of the refining is happening in China, and if you watch the news, Greenland also has a lot of these metals. And there's talk of, is the United States going to use the military to overthrow Greenland and take it away from Denmark? Like these are not conspiracy theories. These are like serious conversations that are happening on serious news channels right now, and it's something that we need to keep an eye on. And this is probably something that's going to happen. The amazing thing, the thing that is somewhat hopeful, is that it hasn't happened yet. And there's a very long history of human beings going out and getting natural resources and causing lots of damage and only figuring stuff out afterwards. But the situation that we're in right now, we actually have the opportunity to get it right. And the thing, I think one reason why, at least people I've spoken to, why this is just so outrageous is that on November 9th,
my birthday,
nobody in our community knew about deep sea mining, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, there's Governor Liu over on Guam is saying that she only heard about it because it popped up on the Federal Register, and then she either emailed or called Governor Apatong, and he said, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." And we've only got 25 days left to comment. And so I think the thing that's most outrageous is the speed at which this is happening. Deep sea mining is probably going to happen somewhere in the world at some point in the future. And as somebody who cares about conservation and as somebody who cares about communities, I haven't completely figured this out. Eventually I'll write some papers on it. But I would want to do it in a way that is as causes the least environmental damage as possible, and also causes the least societal harm. And if you just, again, you could ask ChatGPT, where has mining fucked shit up? You're going to hear about the uranium mining across the United States and the West, and how 100 years later, these communities are still poisoned and are, getting cancer because of things that happened 100 years ago. There's horror stories from the Philippines. There's horror stories from Nauru. Just very recently, there's been some horror stories from Papua New Guinea, where a deep sea mining company was kind of testing some stuff out, and then went belly up, and the local community was left with the bill. I think it was like $24 million or something. And like the way we end this conversation is that what I really think is going on right now in the Marianas is what was happening in PNG, is that this is about testing unproven technology. And it's a lot easier to go to a place that nobody's heard of. It's only 250,000 people. Nobody's ever heard of it. The Yes Theory guys, did you watch that video?
Yeah.
They were like, I can't believe nobody's ever heard of this place. And they see the girl on the street and they're like, do you know that nobody's ever heard of you? And it's so annoying. But like that's the perspective of a lot of people in the United States, is like, it's a far off place. No one really cares. And that's a problem for me.
And you're right.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I would say, but you've said it before in other conversations about other stuff, and it's not even that nobody cares; it's just that people aren't aware of it. I remember,
Brad, you know why that is?
Why?
Colonialism.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And let me explain it to you, because it's important. Because you're gonna be a climate colonialism believer, especially when your daughter goes to college and becomes a liberal.
And then I have to fix her. All right, go ahead.
It's the United. Do you know how many tribes there are in the United States?
Are we including my Jewish friends? I'm not sure.
No, there's 12 of them.
Okay.
12 tribes. But no, the 12 Jewish tribes. Do you know how many tribes there are in the United States?
No, I don't.
Why don't you know that?
And I'm part of one of them.
Because of colonialism, bro.
it's okay. So the United States is a collection of states, territories, and tribes. The tribes are legal entities that are sovereign. The tribes actually have more sovereignty than the territories, and are able to control things that the territories can't. But we are not taught that in our schools, which is nuts. So there's actually over 500 tribes in the United States. I think the number is 574. Almost all of them were recognized like 150 years ago, but over the years, some get added to the list of recognized tribes. So the number is going up. But we are 50 states, 5 territories, and over 500 tribes, and there are millions of people who live under these colonial regimes. And again, I know that word is kind of uncomfortable for you, but there's something like 5 or 6 million people who live in territories, and literally millions of people who live under tribes. Oklahoma, almost everybody is in a tribe.
Yeah, I served with them. I still remember.
They're just like us. Like they serve at high levels in the military. But there's actually, I know some folks. There's some Native Americans who live on Saipan, who married Chamorro girls.
Really?
I'm not gonna call names, but there are tribal people everywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, they're everywhere, and I just don't remember. This is going to come as a bit of a shock, but it's been a while since I've been in school.
Yeah, but the point you were making is that it's not that they don't care; it's that they don't know.
Just not really aware of it, because I had heard of Guam, but I didn't really know much about it. I knew, but I think some of that may be a regional bias too, because I was on the East Coast, so I knew about the Virgin Islands and I knew about Puerto Rico, but the whole connection with Guam and American Samoa.
But you had heard of the Mariana Trench?
I have. Yes, I have. Great marketing.
Can you name one other underwater geological feature anywhere in the world? Not the grotto.
Well, I think, isn't Challenger Deep part of the Mariana Trench?
Challenger Deep is part of the Mariana Trench.
So that won't count.
Anyone. Just name, I feel like I'm Jimmy Kimmel saying, name a country.
I know, but I want to use that one thing, that blah, 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 blah plane that they just talked about with all the mining stuff.
Yep. Clarion Clipperton, maybe?
Yes, there you go.
Yes, Clarion Clipperton. So, I bring that up just to point out the Mariana Trench is literally the most iconic undersea feature on the entire planet. And we live in I live 6,000 miles away. But our people live in a really iconic place. And everybody knows about our ocean. And it's our job to tell them about our islands.
That's
our people.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And so I get that. I definitely get that. And this stuff, as much as I want to get into some of the other stuff that you were talking about, I think that's a better fried chicken and beer conversation.
Sure, man.
But with this one, so like we're saying, so a lot of us, this went from not being a thing to all of a sudden it's the big thing. It's on everybody's radar. And it seemed like the folks here were ready to roll right away to start talking about it. The folks from the college were on it pretty quick. You guys were on it pretty quick. Even before, I know you reached out at one point. The folks from BECQ had reached out to me, say, hey, I don't know if you know about this, but this is coming up. And this was in October. And there was some momentum building toward it.
Yeah, for me it was Sheila. So I helped found the Friends of the Mariana Trench many years ago, and I was a board member for many years, and then I stepped away, and I just came back as a board member a few months ago. And when this popped up, we had a meeting about it, and issues like this are very controversial. Fishing. And we had a discussion about, as a board, Tina's on the board, Lori, Ike, about whether we wanted to be involved in this, because we didn't want to get on the bad sides of leaders who were interested in the financial opportunities. And the island's in a tough place, man. I see the numbers for the arrivals, and I hear about the austerity measures that the government is putting in place, and my heart breaks. And
I think that's one reason why we're even listening, is because, you know, it does offer hope, right? So if it does pan out in the right way.
Is that a mining pun?
But it was Sheila. Sheila said, "No, we are not going to stand for this. We're going to take a position, and we want to help educate the community." And that's kind of what the friends on the ground have done. You know, Sheila and I work together on the resource document that we've been sharing. And we've got the staff updating it with all of the stories that come out. I counted today and yesterday, in the last 48 hours, there were 13 news stories. Like it's unbelievable how much media attention this is getting.
That's a good thing. It's a good conversation to have.
People listening, people talking. But yeah, so Sheila was the one who convinced us that this was something that we wanted to stand, and she turned out to be right? Because as this has kind of wound its way through the community, it sounds like, you know, not 100% opposition, but it sounds like a lot of people are distrustful. And again, I think a large part of that is not necessarily the process, not necessarily the mining itself. I think it's the who and the how, the process, like, you know, the fact that nobody was given a heads up, the fact that it was only 30 days, and then, you know, we didn't know if there was going to be an extension. Like there was no clear communication with the community, so the community created a lot of conflict. And then when they did extend it, it was only a fourth of what was asked, and it went over Christmas and New Year's. And so I think people probably, you know, put their fingers in their ears when they heard about the process, and it's, you know, I think a lot of people were like feel disrespected, like at the end of the day, right? Is that a part of it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue on this, right? Because the environment is the big thing, but I think that you know, there's so many pieces of that puzzle, and then people can have that conversation. But I think that the biggest issue is, like, you know, it feels like this is something that's already been decided. The folks who actually live out here don't have a say in any of it. And even if they can't be the decision makers on it, we don't even have a seat at the table to be there for the conversation. It's like a courtesy. They sent us a recorded video to say, here's what's going on.
Oh my God, that was nuts. Like, what were they thinking? Like, that's so, like, it's like, what other conclusion could you come to other than that this is a fait accompli? There is a silver lining. So there's a new report that just came out, this techno-economic report that was done by a couple of scientists in partnership with the National Ocean Protection Coalition. And it's a long report, lots of big words. But they kind of found that deep sea mining at a commercial scale, right? Mm-hmm. Not some testing here and there, but at a commercial scale probably isn't going to happen for 15 years based on where the technology is at and where the economy is at and whatnot. And I'm not the right person to speak on that. Like, I just know the high level talking point. But I'm sure the scientists who wrote that paper would be happy to talk with you. That just brings me to, like, my conclusion is that this is really it's probably just about testing unproven technology. And it's, you know, it's really interesting that the Impossible Metals guy popped up because he is Mr. Unproven Technology. And yeah, I think that's what they're kind of hoping is, like, they've come out to a place that nobody's ever heard of, that nobody ever cares about, and they can go out there and mess things up. If they break the law, who's going to notice, right? It's a place where you can get away with committing crimes.
Here, Saipan?
Yeah.
So, you know, to go on that, you know, mention the Impossible Metals guy, right? So we had him on the show, and we got to talk to him and hear about his thing, because that's the only one that we know that was submitting something for out here. You know, and their approach to it, again, is not the doom and gloom where they suck up all the sand and all the mud where there's metals in it. And they're not talking about excavating like 70 feet below that. You know, they're talking about that picking thing with all that other stuff. Now, do I have some issues with it? Yes, still probably. But that sounds way less invasive. They're not carving out sea mounds and all that stuff. They're picking up potatoes. I know that's dumbing it down also, but it seems like that one is, and they said that they're leaving behind 94 to 96% of what's down there. So that one sounds like the least invasive of all of these things. Least, like when I hear terms being thrown around by the people who are really passionate about this, they talk about permanent destruction and all this other stuff. And this one doesn't seem like it's got that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, right? Like, I wish we had more companies that wanted to do things in an environmental friendly way. So I'll give the man credit there, right? I think he has an idea, right? And he's done a little bit. They've come up with some plans, and there's actually another really interesting project that I think parallels what he's trying to do. Have you heard of the ocean cleanup? It was started. Have you heard of it?
This is the one where they were going for that patch.
Yes. So it was this Dutch teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and the story is he went diving in the Mediterranean and he saw a plastic bag and some other garbage, and he was so upset, and he went home and, as a Dutch teenager, thought, what can I do to clean up this plastic? And he invented this idea of the ocean cleanup, and he gave a TED talk. And this TED talk has like tens of millions of views. Like it's super popular online. And venture capitalists were like, oh, this Dutch teenager is the most brilliant person ever. Why haven't we, these PhDs and scientists, been able to figure out how to clean up plastic in the ocean? We needed this kid to figure out. And so they literally gave him like $100 million. And he put together his ocean cleanup contraption. And long story short, they've been doing it for 10 years, and like it's just like an absolute failure.
Wow.
And if you look up what different scientists have said about this, they said from the beginning, they're like, this isn't going to work. You're going to kill a ton of animals. It's super problematic. You need to fix this. You need to fix this. You need to fix this. And it doesn't work, and it didn't work. And now what they're doing is they're just publishing AI videos claiming that it works, when nobody really thinks that it works. And I want to give this guy credit. Like I think I want more people to think the way that he's thinking, right? It's like, how do we have this? There's this idea called the just transition of climate change is a problem, and we have to build all of the stuff that's going to get us to not use oil anymore. So it's we need offshore wind, we need wave generating electricities. That's not the technical term. We need solar, we need batteries. And in order to build this stuff, we need these electric rocks. And, they're all over the world. They're in different places, and many of them are under the sea. And so like, I applaud people who are thinking, how do we do this in a way that doesn't damage the environment? And, the place I'll land with what I think about impossible metals right now is like, hey, you're off to a good start. Like I'm willing, like keep going down that road. But like the scientists out there, like they don't really think that it's quite ready. Like I did a little bit of research, and Impossible Metals is claiming that they're gonna have like robots, like an army of robots. They're gonna go and pluck the rocks off the ground, and they're saying that anything that has life larger than 1 millimeter, that they will avoid all of the nodules that have life that's larger than 1 millimeter, and they're going to harvest 16 nodules every 1.5 seconds. And the scientists who have looked at that had said, no, like that's just not realistic. And I trust them. It's you've got the technology, the tech bro on kind of one side, and then every scientist I've ever met on the other side. So I think he's off to a really good start, but it's probably not ready. And on the timeline that's been given, and the fact that there seems to be no way that our community is going to benefit from this. There's no agreements. He's offered 1%, which is like meaningless. So, like at this point, the answer is no. It doesn't mean that the answer will be no forever, but our community is facing a deadline of Monday, and we have to take in all of the different aspects of what's going on, and I'm like, Guam is absolutely completely opposed to this, right? The legislature is going to pass a resolution on Friday. The governor, the lieutenant governor, the delegate, all come out strongly in opposition to this. Like the question in front of us right now is, do you support this by Monday? And it sounds to be a resounding no from almost everybody in our community.
So,
and there are a handful of holdouts, I admit.
Yeah. So, but I like your approach to your conversation on this, and the part about doing this. If there, again, I don't, with this one in particular, right? Even if this is an experimental thing, my biggest thing is, what is the biggest downside if this works? Now, most importantly, though, I like the idea of giving everybody, the respect to be able to weigh in and all this stuff, and not saying, hey, you have to have this done in 30 days. Okay, fine, we'll give you another 30 days while you guys are doing your holidays and all that other stuff. But if, for instance, this one, so again, to give you my perspective on it, I'm not a conservationist, but I'm not a rape the land kind of guy. So I don't know anyone who would put that on their LinkedIn anyway. But for instance, like, I know that
you're not Dick Cheney. You're someone. And
want to go hunting, George. So like forestry, I think this was a conversation we were having about it, right? So the forestry, people like wood. People build houses out of wood and all this other stuff. People appreciate that wood can grow back if you plant it and you can manage forests and all that stuff. It's still devastating to see big swaths of forest go cut for like lumber and paper and stuff like that. It's terrible. And these trees are the lungs of the planet. They filter out all the bad stuff and produce oxygen. Now that's great. Right now, this is something that's like 10,000 feet at the bottom of the sea that no one sees, that's far away, and all this other stuff. So finding the thing, like, if people can't get fired up about the trees, but it can get to try to get them to get fired up about this is tough. That's one. Number two, more importantly, is that actually there's like two more parts of this. So the other one is with like when they're harvesting those trees and all that stuff, there's a lot more of the microbial life. Those trees are life, right? So you're taking that. So like that 1 millimeter versus something that's been around for like decades, people seem to be okay with that just because it was kind of in the norm at that part.
Did you see the movie The Martian?
I did not. Keanu Reeves?
With what's the guy from Boston?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. Oh
yes, I did see that
one. I know you're not a scientist. I know that, and
yes.
You're less concerned about the microbial stuff.
It's true.
But in the movie The Martian, the thing that kept Matt Damon alive was the bacteria in all of his poop. Because if you've seen the movie,
mm-hmm.
He's stuck on the planet, and he's got a handful of potatoes, and he figures out a way to grow those potatoes into more potatoes, but he can't do it in the Martian soil because Martian soil doesn't have the bacteria in it, and you don't appreciate that until you're on Mars. You don't appreciate the bacteria in your gut until you don't have it anymore. And it's kind of going to probably be the same thing with these deep sea mining issues. Is the scientists are telling us this is going to be really bad for the microbial habitat, and we're not going to know how bad it is until it's gone. And the worst it could possibly go is from Matt Damon on the movie The Martian. But I think that's just a really great way to understand why some of these ecological functions that seem invisible to us are actually the basis of life.
This is excellent. These are great talking points. The other thing is, though, they're not talking about wiping out all of it. They're just taking some of it. So that's why that's why this one, it's this particular approach. Like this is like the kindest, softest, gentlest, and
it's a good start. You could be kinder.
Yeah, and even if this was experimental. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he's I still put him in the same category as the ocean cleanup. The deep sea mining campaign has kind of done an analysis of what their plans are and are saying that it's impossible. So I think, and on the islands, we have some experience of people saying that they're going to do some stuff, and then it turns out to be impossible. I'm not going to say, you know what they are.
You can't spell impossible without IPI.
Yeah. So I think, it's a good start, and it's a good story, and it's really inspiring. And if he does a TED Talk, I think a lot of people will watch it and they'll cry, and they'll be just so inspired. But as with any technology, at the end of the day, he's got to find some venture capitalists to fund him.
Yeah.
And so, he's telling a good story, and I think he's starting from the right place. And I think our community would be willing to work with him. However, we're not willing to work with him if the deadline is Monday. And then I forget if he went on your show and said this, or if it was he spoke to one of the national newspapers. He said 60 days is enough, and 60 days should not be up to him. The other thing that he said, which kind of pissed me off, is he said that Chamorro people have no connection to the ocean because we're Christians, and that is just
wasn't on our show though.
Yeah, he said that it's in print, that particular line. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he basically said, we don't need to worry about these concerns about culture and tradition because they're Christian. I think it was either in Grist or Monterey Bay in that story. So, dude, you're not making yourself any friends, right? You know, it's like if you actually, if he was selling beer, or if he was trying to open a hotel or a casino, you wouldn't come to the island and insult people. And he has kind of done that. And he's, and you got to do it by Monday. If I were trying to push deep sea mining on the community, I would say, hey, I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to work on your timeline, and I'm going to address the concerns that you have. And we've heard that from nobody, right? The federal government's not saying that. The mining company is not saying that, and it's unfortunate. And the deadline's on Monday, so I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, by the way, you said something else about the 1%. Because that seems like such a ridiculously small figure, right?
Yeah.
But when I asked him about that, he was saying, look. And that's almost like a courtesy, because that's not something they would have.
There's nothing in the law that would give CNMI any benefit. So there's an RFI coming for Virginia. It was in the Federal Register a couple of weeks ago. Virginia is not going to get any money when the deep sea mining happens
from the company. But
this is part of. We have the United States is massive, right? The ocean is massive. It's something like 13 million square kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles. I should.
More than 4.
We have public lands and we have public waters, and the federal government leases land for grazing and for logging and for mining and for oil drilling, and BOEM is the agency that does that on the ocean for minerals and oil drilling. So, this is a process, like if there's going to be lease sales for oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, this is the exact same process that they're going through. So, this is a process that exists in law, and we're participating in the first time because nobody's ever tried oil drilling, and it's literally the first time the U.S. has tried deep sea mining. But BOEM also does, if you want to replenish a beach, you got to get a permit from BOEM, and you do this kind of stuff, and you go through NEPA, and there's previous times they're supposed to do it in a way that was not damaging the environment and causing permanent harm, but just with the current administration, it seems that environmental protection is less important than resource extraction.
Hey, so with this though, the one thing that he talked about though was that the main way that the CNMI or Guam for that matter, even though Guam wasn't mentioned in the whole thing. And I know the water's connected. There's no dotted line that says nothing passes through this. But they said that the main way to get a bigger piece of that pie is to negotiate it through BOEM with the U.S. government and the CNMI, akin to like what you mentioned, the oil drilling and stuff like that. Then that's where the bigger part of that money would be than that extra 1% that you would get from whatever company would get it.
So we're handicapped in that, and do you know why?
Colonialism.
So we are at a disadvantage to that because we don't have 2 senators. And in the United States, in a state, a senator can hold up anything for any reason for like almost forever. That's why they have the filibuster. And we are at a disadvantage because we don't have the power to negotiate. And what we have to do is we have to rely on other powerful people to share their power with us to help us negotiate. Sometimes that's like the senators in Alaska. Sometimes that's the senators in Hawaii. Sometimes that's lobbyists. Like, the CNMI government has hired a bunch of lobbyists over the years. Sometimes it's NGOs. But we are at a massive disadvantage for that. And it goes back to the whole thing of, is this actually an attempt to create a long-term sustainable economic activity akin to tourism, or is this they just want to test some gear in a place that nobody's ever heard of, that nobody cares about, so that they can go, the place that has the real gold mine is the Clarion-Clipperton zone on the high seas.
So why wouldn't they want to test it there? Because it's closer and everything there. Wouldn't that be easier for them to get it there? It's closer to their resources, to their hubs.
They're on the high seas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and it's also we're closer to a port, and also I think we just don't matter. I'm not saying we don't matter. I'm saying for these companies, for somebody to come in and say that our people don't care about the ocean because we're Christian, that is evidence of somebody who does not care about us or care about our islands or our places or our people. I think that is really the thinking that's going on is we're going to make this happen in all these places. Let's go test our gear in Samoa and the Marianas. Yeah. And then when we show that it works, we'll sell it to some venture capitalists, and then we're going to go make some real money.
Maybe at the very least, it's good stuff to talk about. I like the idea of having that conversation and keeping it going. If it was oil drilling like 123 or 130 miles away, I wouldn't be in favor of this at all, right? But the folks in Alaska, they get money every year.
They get a check.
What's that?
They get a check every month or week.
Yeah,
or year.
Just because they get a dividend from the oil reserves from all those things that come in. They also got the Exxon Valdez that decided to show how good the Dawn dishwashing soap can take oil off of animals.
You bring up a good point with the Exxon Valdez. I actually wanted to make the point because you asked me what I was most concerned about. Mm-hmm. And actually, one of my concerns is something that I've heard nobody talk about. This could actually work. And as an example, oil drilling in the Gulf of Mexico works 99.9% of the time, right? It's they do go through this RFI process, they lease it out, the government gets money, they drill for oil. The real problem is when it goes wrong, right? And do you remember Deepwater Horizon?
Yeah.
That was really bad. And you forget, like with these robots that are going to go down there, let's pretend that that's going to be the thing. Where are the data centers going to be? Are the data centers going to be on Saipan, or are they going to be in Virginia? And what happens if the fiber optic cable breaks and suddenly you can't connect to your AI centers and you've got an army of AI robots that can rip up the seafloor?
First of all, the thing is on that one, there's no fiber optic cable. is the way they were saying it, that there's nothing tethered between the ship and that thing as it goes down.
Sure. What if there's a solar flare and the satellites go out? So like the point I'm making is that like we do it right, it's going to work 99.9% of the time. Have you ever seen a movie about the ocean?
Well, and that's so we asked them that question. This is a great point. I mean, like, because I said, look, you're talking about something that's the size of like a 40-foot container, and you're in the ocean. Even on great conditions, things here, the ocean kills it, like somehow or another. Like, you can't do it. So what's the plan for if something goes down? How do you recover? He's like, well, first of all, excuse me, these things are positively buoyant. So, I mean, like, I know some of this is company shtick, right? I mean, like, you got to tell me, you know, all the good stuff that works for your company, why it's a great thing. But you know something's not going to work in these things. At some point, something's going to break. How do you recover these things and all that other stuff? So, but that's why with this particular method, it seems like it's about, like, the worst thing that could happen would be an equipment malfunction or breakdown or something. And it would be pretty massive because it's like a 40-foot container, positively buoyant robot potato picker. But it doesn't seem like, again, it's not like that big, it's not the pit mining and stuff like that. And it's
Donald Rumsfeld would have called that one of the known knowns that could go bad. I think the real telltale thing is the unknown unknown.
Yeah, how are they powered? You know what?
Not like that. Like there's a great joke of like, what are the best 2 days of owning a boat?
Buying it and selling it.
Yeah, the day you buy it and the day you sell it are the best 2 days. And, you know, if this is with ocean, we could actually probably learn a lot from the ocean cleanup. One of the things that the ocean cleanup didn't account for is that when you put something in the water, almost immediately, and anybody who owns a boat or who has been to a pier or has been snorkeling knows that anytime you put something in the ocean, things start growing on it. Barnacles and algae and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, this army of robots is going to be under the water and it's going to have stuff growing on it. And that always causes problems. The way you make that not happen is you buy very poisonous paint and you paint and it's not good for the ocean and the things that live in it. And you paint that on the outside of your boat so that things can't grow on it. And like those things are toxic. And, you know, the questions we need to ask are they toxic for the animals that live there? But we don't even know what animals live there. So, you know, it's this back and forth of we think some things could go bad. But it's not going to be, whatever happens, it's not going to be environmentally neutral. And, you know, the questions we need to ask ourselves as stewards of the, you know, whether you're an environmentalist or not, is, you know, what level of damage are we willing to accept for these activities? Because or none at all, or we're not willing. Some people will say, I'm not willing to accept any level of damage. But I think, you know, we have mining around the world, we have logging, we have grazing. Most economies and cultures are willing to accept some level of damage for that economic activity. And can we have that conversation in a grown-up way among adults, but also make it so that it's fair, so that we're on a level playing field, and it's not just, you know, a couple of senior advisors in Washington, D.C. forcing this down our throats. And that's the situation that's happening right now. I'm actually hearing like a lot of agreement between you and me on some of this, of like, hey, you know, there will be some damage. Let's have a discussion of like how much we're willing to live with. And also like, how do we make it so that our ideas are part of the plan? And how do we make it so that the benefits make our way to our community? Because our community is suffering right now. I don't need to tell anybody on the island how bad the economy is right now. And like things like this, things like the casino, things in the, you know, there was a peanut butter factory, there was a shoe factory discussion, there were the garment industry. These ideas that come off island are just very attractive. because we need them to stay afloat to keep the lights on and keep the schools open. All right, I'm gonna get off my pedestal.
No, this is great. I mean, this is the kind of conversation people need to have. Because and by the way, I don't think there's any real disagreement between us. It's not. I haven't stuck my flag in the we need this or we don't need this. I'm just more into like what I deem to be rational discussions about it, right? I mean, like I don't like if somebody like what you mentioned, like those offhanded comments that seem to kind of belittle folks. I hate that kind of crap, and that's no way to engender yourself to the community. But I also want to hear like the arguments that are being made against this whole process make sense too. When people tell me like what the way I view this, the even with the most destructive version of this that we got in that webinar like a month ago or so, the one that what's his name again? Drazen, Dr. Drazen.
Yeah, he's on Saipan today.
Yeah, so. Even with the most destructive scenario that he mentioned, with where they suck it up to the ships and they don't even drop it all the way, which it sounds terrible, by the way. I can't get behind this at all. Where they take stuff from 3,000 meters below, they suck it up through the tubes, they keep what they want, and then they send it back down, but they only send it down 1,000 meters, so that means it's got free fall for 2,000 meters, right? Even at that, which I would be totally against, 100%. That one still wouldn't affect us here directly as far as the sediment washing up on our shores and stuff like that. I
Push
don't
back on that immediately.
Wait, I'm not done with this though. But,
yeah, go ahead, keep going.
But it would affect everything, like every fish that would pass through here, every mammal that would pass through here, everything that used to live there on the bottom that got excavated 70 feet down and all that other stuff would be everything. And eventually the impact would be felt here. We just wouldn't see it on the reef is what he was saying. He was saying that that kind of plume stuff wouldn't wash up on the sands. Not saying that we wouldn't expect it or we wouldn't be affected overall by it, but like we wouldn't see it on the beach necessarily, but it would be terrible. Like that sounds like that's the real destruction. That's the irreparable harm. I like all of that. I get that. And with that, I don't see it with this little potato picker guy, even though if it's untested and all that other stuff. So like, I don't see them apples and oranges. I don't see them as the exact same thing. The concept of mining is the same, but this one just seems different. So.
Yeah, I think the place where we've landed with potato picker bro is that it's a good start. We're glad you're thinking about that. We're not ready to have that conversation by Monday.
Yep.
I'll bring back Deepwater Horizon. When Deepwater Horizon happened 10 years ago, some of the oil would like glom together and turn into these clumps, and it would wash down Florida all the way around to Miami, and there was oil washing up all up and down the East Coast. Another example that I've seen with my own eyes, I was in Rapa Nui a couple of years ago, Easter Island, and I was out fishing, scuba diving one trip and then fishing on another. And there are these plastic crates that the fishermen are always grabbing. And when I was out fishing, we came upon one and he grabbed it out of the water, and it had a name of a New Zealand company. And again, this is floating on the top of the ocean, and it's plastic, but fishing in New Zealand affects the ocean and Easter Island, which is like 4,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And with this deep sea mining stuff, we actually don't know. There are stories of, you hear, like there was one recently about like Legos, like a ship with a bunch of Legos fell in the water, and then they tracked where the Legos went. And currents have the ability to take some of this stuff like really, really long distance. And the thing is that we've never done this before, and what the scientist was sharing was a model, and we use models for lots of things. We use models for fishing. But at the end of the day, it's just a computer simulation. I'm blanking on the name of the law, but the one with if something can go wrong, it will. That's not Newton's law. Newton's law is I'm stumbling now, but like the ocean is connected across thousands and thousands of miles, and at the end of the day, 128 miles from this mining area, that's as far as Guam.
Hey, real quick, Clarion Clipperton Zone, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
All right. See, look, I can remember it now. Now I got the answer for your earlier question. But so is there a reason, do you think, you mentioned the ports are different, but do you think it's also because the regulations are different? It's easier for them to push it through in the U.S. system as opposed to going through the international system?
So I want to couch that answer with, I didn't really know a lot about deep sea mining until this summer. And it started in American Samoa. That's kind of when I got involved in this issue. Deep sea mining on the high seas is different. There's a law that manages the high seas. It's called the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. It's called UNCLOS. And UNCLOS manages, it might manage fisheries soon. But there's an international body called the ISA, the International Seabed Authority, and it's based in Jamaica. And for the last 20 years or so, all of the different countries that are a party to UNCLOS, and the United States is not a party to UNCLOS, have been trying to negotiate what the rules are going to be. Like, who's going to be able to mine, who's going to get the benefits, what has to be shared. And they're very close to an agreement on what some of these rules would be, like within like years, possibly. Mm-hmm. And these agreements at these international bodies take literally decades to negotiate. The thing with the Clarion Clipperton Zone is the Trump administration could issue permits to mine on the high seas, and that would completely blow up this international process. And I've kind of read and learned about this for the last 6 months, but some of my colleagues have literally worked on this for 20 years. And what the United States might end up doing is just like blowing up this international consensus about a more sustainable way to mine the deep sea. And if the U.S. just goes in there and issues a permit to the company that it's called the Metals Company, it's mm-hmm. a Canadian company. How is Russia going to respond? Is Russia just going to sit on the sidelines and say, well, we're just going to let the United States do whatever they want, and we're going to continue with these really slow, boring negotiations? What is China going to do? What is China going to do? Are they also going to say, oh, we're not going to compete? So the complicating factor with the mining in Clarion Clipperton and on the high seas are these issues of international relations. And in that situation, so like the situation within our waters is it's just mining, it's just environment, community outreach. On the high seas, it's everything that's international relations, right? It's all of those things that countries use to push and pull for the things that they negotiate for mm-hmm. At the international level. So it's a lot more complicated, it's a lot more delicate. And then there's also just like a lot more countries involved, because basically every country except the United States is a party to this treaty.
Wow. Well, I mean, like China, they're not exactly the leader in doing things the right way. I mean, especially with their fishing folks out there, they're fishing all over in the Pacific. But I don't want to get too crazy off of it, like on a rant about
because we're not talking about the Clarion Clipperton Zone.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a good point. It's good stuff. Man, so we've been rolling for about an hour now. That was pretty fast. And, one, again, I said it a few times, but I really appreciate that we're having this conversation. And I think that everyone who's having these conversations should be having them somewhat similar to this. I think a lot of people paint themselves into like a little room, a little echo chamber. They don't get to have a discussion. And if anybody does bring up something to the contrary, then all of a sudden they're the worst person ever. So this is healthy and beneficial, I think.
And we're getting towards the end, but for your listeners, the thing that I would ask is, this mining thing, it's going to be very hot and heavy for the next couple days. It's going to kind of chill out for a while. And then they will announce, they will respond to all of the comments, and there will be a very long document that we can read and look at. And they will, the government will probably make a recommendation on the area that they're going to consider for further potential mining. But, you know, our islands are in this place where a lot of these, and this harkens back to the stuff we were talking about earlier, is a lot of these big things are coming from off island. And, you know, there was the critical habitat for turtles and corals not that long ago. And there's everything that the military does. And I would ask our islands to, how do we get to a situation, and the answer is colonialism. The reason it's not happening is colonialism. But how do we get to a place where we're in the driver's seat, right? Mm-hmm. And what are the things that we need to put in place so that we're more in the driver's seat? And we've actually got some really great people who could help us with that. I have not seen Delegate Kim in DC. I probably will see her soon-ish. But, you know, she's a really great voice for us in DC. We've also got Angel Demapon, who's working at Insular Affairs. You know, he's I think the Deputy Assistant Secretary at Insular Affairs. And we can look to things like the tribes in the U.S. And the tribes have consultations. There's special rules that apply to the tribes. And then even the Native Hawaiian groups in Hawaii also have some things in place where there has to be a certain level of consultation for them. And that does not exist for Guam and CNMI at the federal level. And you know, yes, we have the covenant, and yes, we have the 902 talks, but it's not just CNMI versus like America. CNMI is owned by, but not part of the United States. But most of our people are also citizens. And so the United States federal government is supposed to be managing these things on our behalf. We have this thing called the public trust doctrine. It's this idea that we have public lands, we have public waters, and they're owned by me, they're owned by you. Like, all of these resources are owned collectively by all of us, and the federal government is only supposed to manage it on our behalf. They're not supposed to come in and force their ideas on us. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to, you know, most of us are citizens of this great country. And they have not done the best job to engage with our people on a lot of these natural resource issues. You know, I talked about the monument earlier. Why did it take 15 years to get that office opened? You know, I'm so glad that there's monument staff now, and the monument staff is in the community, and they're talking to schools, and they're educating people about the monument. Why did it take 15 years to get that management plan? What's the answer, Brad?
Is that really why? Because it seemed to me, again, and I'm like, on your team.
I talked about it's territories. Like, we're a territory, not a state.
I thought a lot of the holdup was here for that.
No, that was just it was. Who was the superintendent, right? Like, they didn't hire us. Sean didn't get hired until 3 years ago. Yeah, no, that one was complicated. It actually, there was a lot of work in Washington, D.C. To get, and hopefully some of them are listening to this podcast, but there was a gigantic effort by the Biden administration and the White House to get that was publishing the management plan for the Mariana Trench was a priority of the Biden White House, and they got it out in 2024. And it was really cool. I hold this event because I work on ocean justice, and I hold an event every year in collaboration with many partners, but it's called Upwell. And in 2024, we invited the Secretary of Interior to come to our meeting on ocean justice. And Sean McDuff came. He came to DC that week, and he was in the audience. And while the superintendent was in the audience, I got to introduce Secretary Holland to our event. And then in her talk, she announced that the management plan was finished. It took 15 years, And it was like, if there's ever a movie about my life, like I want that moment to be like the big end of the movie of like, oh my God, they finally got it done. Because man, like we worked across a number of different presidents with a whole bunch of different government agencies all over the years. And it's finally done. You know, the monument is finally active. There's staff, there's an office on Saipan, there's a management plan, programs are taking place. It took longer than it should have. And do you know why, Brad?
All right, so I remember the big thing here was the visitor center that people were harping on. And when are we going to get these jobs? And when is all this going to come in? I remember this being a big deal. I remember hearing like the folks who were against the monument, that was the thing that they were like, see, I told you, you know, we didn't get it and all that.
Yeah, and I have a lot of empathy. I have a lot of empathy for that because, you know, nobody was more disappointed than me. You know, for the folks that were criticizing it, I consider I was actually a bigger critic, but I also did something about it.
And that's why you're awesome. By the way, Ocean Justice sounds like it should be the new underwater court TV show. I want to watch it. Dum, dum, dum. We can get Doug Llewellyn to come back out. And so what do you say here? Miss Manatee is accusing Larry Octopus of taking too much of their space on the reef. Apparently they need a Louisiana Creole accent too. If they're going to be
is that what that was?
It was not good. It was not good. But Ocean Justice, I would watch that show. And it can air right here on the end of my news service. Hey, I know you said we're getting toward the end. Is there some more points that we want to hit before?
Yeah, no, you know, thanks for the opportunity to talk. Like I recognize I'm very much the DC guy, and I shared some DC perspectives on what's happening. I encourage people to participate in this process. There's a couple of days left. The deadline is on Monday. And, you know, people clearly care about this, you know, fighting what you're against, like really gets people riled up. But we should also begin to think about what are the things that we want. Not just what are we opposed to, but what are the things that we want. And like I leave that open-ended. I think it's a good question to ask people.
That's great. Well, hey, I appreciate it. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of comments that came in. I've had
any good ones. Do I need to respond?
I'm going to take a look. There's a bunch of them. I actually didn't really get to them because I was sitting here looking at I had other stuff on the other screen over here. But I think we're going to end up getting a few later. But I think people are really interested in this. And we got people who have been popping in some links to different things about this stuff and these issues. And by the way, thanks to you and the network of folks who are interested in about this stuff, we've been able to talk about this for a while. Like since it kind of hit the ground here, we've been able to have folks in here. Sheila's going to be in tomorrow.
Great.
And that'll be a lot of fun. We spoke about her a little bit today, but Sheila Babalta will be on here along with Amanda Dedicatoria from the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance.
Great.
I have to ask her about her title. She's a board member. That's not a hard title, but science communicator. I heard her.
That's a funny one. I know hundreds of science communicators.
That's great.
It's a profession. It's a thing. There's hundreds of them, thousands.
Yeah, I have thoughts about the title.
That's the world I live in, Brad. You just don't live in that world.
It's true, but I do.
You're gonna get a taste. You're gonna get a taste.
This is true, but you know what? I keep noticing. I've got it on the screen. You can't see it, but the amazing color match between that symbol on your shirt and the NMI News Service logo. It is is perfect. It's also a circle, but that's a great shirt. What is that from?
This is a T-shirt of one of my favorite organizations. It's the Healthy Ocean Coalition, and they have a network of people all across the United States. It's mostly activist types, and the Healthy Ocean Coalition does trainings on how to engage with uh, policymakers. So like how to work with the Congress, how to talk to a president, how to talk to a governor. And I am an alumni of their great work. And I just love what they do and support everything because, there's no, like, you don't go to high school or college and get a lesson on how do I get the U.S. Congress to do what I want to do. What happens is you get a job where you do that, and then you kind of figure it out as you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what they do. Healthy Ocean Coalition, they rock.
That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, it is great catching up with you on other stuff. I feel like we could talk about a million different topics and go back and forth on some stuff, and it would be fun. But
I'll give the family my best. Miss you guys.
Hey, we didn't tell you, we're coming there in the summer, and hopefully great. We can catch up. So the plan is we fly in to New York. We'll be there for a while with the family and everything. We're going to take a train all the way to the city, catch a couple of shows, be there for a few days, and then take a train to come to D.C., so the kids can experience Washington, D.C., their Uncle Angelo, and get Vince involved, all kinds of folks that we know that are down there.
Let me offer this. So my wife works at a hotel in DC and can get you a really good price for a room. And it's the Wharf, which is like the fancy place in DC these days. So let me see if I can help you with the hotel room in DC. And then let's not go to a Broadway show and let's go to a Mets and Yankees game.
Oh no, that sounds amazing. That's why it's 3 days. So the kids want to see Hamilton. Okay.
Let's go see the Yankees.
We want to take them to see The Lion King. I mean, it's just,
Okay, I might go to that. I would love that. I've never seen The Lion King.
It's gonna.
I love that. Hakuna Matata. I'd love to see that play.
It is. Kathy and I had seen it in New York.
That's great.
A long time ago, but we definitely would go back. How old are the kids now? Keone is 14. Leilani is 13.
Wow.
I know it goes so quick.
Leilani's going to go to college soon, and she's going to have all the opinions that I have. And you're going to be the grumpy old conservative dad, and she's going to change your mind.
You know what's really funny about that is that when you spend some time with her, you're going to find out how much more she is me than Kathy, and it's okay. I'm okay if she turns into.
I mean, like your personality's okay. It's your eyebrows that are the problem.
Well, at least I've got two of them. That's the important part. So. I know because I'm not going to mention names here, but we have a mutual friend that we have referenced our friend's adult daughter and her takes on things and referenced it to like, Brad, that's what you're going to get. I'm like, no, we're going to have real conversations.
I feel like that's a trope. I feel like every conservative dad gets a liberal daughter. So I'm sending you the blessing right now. She's 13. In about 5 years, you're gonna have some life lessons. I'm
like Chris Rock, where he's like conservative about some things and liberal about some things. Yeah, conservative on crime.
On that other thing.
Yeah, another profession, liberal. Like I loved any with it. Anyway, so we'll talk more about that trip. That should be a lot of fun. Let's find out. I don't know if the Yankees and Mets are going to have that interleague play, but either way, I'd love to take them to Yankee Stadium.
Like go to a Mets game and go to a Yankees game.
Oh man, no kidding.
I've been to Yankee Stadium a couple times. I've never seen the Mets play. I've never been to the Mets Stadium.
I went to the previous Yankee Stadium. I haven't been to the new one yet, so that's it. All right. And by the way, not that we're going to be getting tickets for it, but that's the same time as the World Cup as well.
Okay.
So
the other thing is if you can be in DC on a Sunday morning, I play softball every Sunday morning, and it's this game that's been going for 55 years. It's a group of guys who started a pickup game in 1972, and they've been playing it every Sunday. And if you're here on a Sunday morning, I want to bring you to this game.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm sure we'll be there on a weekend.
Yeah, try to Sunday morning softball. The other thing is there's a farmer's market right across the street from my house on Saturday mornings, and they make the best breakfast burritos in Washington, D.C. And I put this invite out to anybody from Saipan and Guam, is if you're in D.C. on a Saturday morning, look me up, and I will take you to get the best breakfast burrito you've ever had.
That's awesome. Tastes so good, they're possibly illegal. No,
Ocean justice.
Ocean justice coming to a deep sea port near you. All right, hey, Angelo, thanks so much for being on this morning. This was great.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
Wake up to the sunshine in the morning.